AJ, come on in.
Thanks, Justice. Mrs. Ward, how are you? I hope I'm not interrupting at all.
Oh, no, I'm just helping Justice get caught up on his campaign. Thank you. Have a seat.
Thanks. Justice, I should have called first. I was hoping that we could have a preliminary meeting, though, about the foundation.
I'll just
Well,
move.
no, that's good. Have a seat, Granny
Okay.
Mae.
Thank you.
Stay there. We may need your input.
Please. Basically, I was hoping just to discuss some of the makeup of the board, just general philosophy, some guidelines for loan applications, that sort of thing.
Well, that may be a little premature, being as how we don't even have a bank account yet.
You know what I was thinking, Justice, was the more you and I can communicate, the better and clearer fix I can have on how you want to operate things. Don't you agree?
Yeah, communication is the key. So, what fundamentals do you have in mind?
Well, for starters, I was interested in hearing some of your ideas about who would represent the Charles Street point of view on the board.
Well, I had anticipated that the board members would have a single point of view, the economic development of this neighborhood.
Well, of course. So who's on your mind?
Well, my grandmother, not because she is, but because no one, with the possible exception of Dr. Phillips, has more lines into this community or understands it any better.
I'm sure. Now, who is this Dr. Phillips? I'm not familiar with him.
He's the pastor of the Mount Hebron Church.
And does he have any business background?
He's got a Charles Street background. He knows everybody. He's been doing this for 18 years. And in that time, he has funded daycare, employment programs, youth center, the visiting nurses program, and managed to run his church in the black.
And he can squeeze more good out of a dollar than anybody I know.
I think it's safe to say that Dr. Phillips is well-versed in business.
Okay, you got me. Let me ask you this then, Justice. Who else are you thinking about?
Orville Leeds.
Orville Leeds. Him I know. He's got a big lumber mill upstate, right? And then he's got a couple little local outfits here.
Yeah. Among them, the hardware store that my husband Dan had for many years.
And Simone Hardy.
Dr. Hardy. Dr. Hardy. Well, that's an interesting choice.
She's smart, pragmatic, well-connected. Of course, I don't know how you would rate her business sense. She tends to work a lot for free. Anyway, that does it for our candidates from the neighborhood. What about the Quartermain contingent?
Well, as you know, we have Grandfather's going to co-chair with you, and then there's Lee Baldwin and me. After all, it's your ballgame, Justice.
Very generous.
Well, as the primary business advisor on the board, Justice, I'm going to have and do have some ideas and some input, starting with the loan application process.
Ah, how do we avoid the deadbeats?
There you go, exactly.
Oh. Why don't we just keep it simple, like review the applications, analyze the proposals, interview the applicants, and make a decision based on character?
Well, what about credit history?
AJ, and I don't think that very many of our applicants will be listed in Standard & Poor's.
Justice, with all due respect, this is a rather serious investment, and we should handle it wisely. If we don't, we might as well just hand out money on the street corners. Now, that wouldn't be empowerment, would it?
Oh. Empowerment? Well, it's a very politically correct term. Where did you learn that? Your brother?
I tell you what, I'm going to choose to ignore that. And I'm going to tell you, the reason that I've taken this job is because I've got the business know-how that you people need.
Oh, and which people would that be?
Okay, let's just get this out on the table right now. Why am I getting so much attitude from you?
First of all, I'm in complete agreement that communication between you and me is essential to the success of this foundation. So, let's discuss attitude. You have managed to convey the impression that you think you're dealing with a bunch of woolly-minded liberals who don't know a balance sheet from a hole in the ground. Okay, well, my graduate degree is in law, while at Penn, I minored in economics. In Philadelphia, I sat on the board of a foundation very much like this foundation that gave financial and legal advice to African-American businessmen whose varied enterprises grossed several $100 million annually. Dr. Phillips and Orville Leeds understand and respect the value of a dollar every bit as much as your grandfather. My grandmother wrote the book on loan applications, okay? And she has managed to keep the Bradley Ward House afloat for 20 years. So collectively, I think that we all have a pretty good idea of what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. And frankly, we don't need a hell of a lot of instruction on sound business practices.
Well, I'm sorry if that's the impression I gave.
You did.
I apologize.
Apology accepted. Now, if I'm wrong about this, you let me know. From what I understand, you are the Quartermain who had the big idea to buy up a hunk of property in what you perceive to be an easy mark of a neighborhood in order to build a toxic waste incinerator in my grandmother's backyard.
That's correct.
Okay. Then, so I'm sure you can understand why I look at you as primary business advisor for this foundation with a slightly jaundiced eye.
Oh, I understand. I understand completely. And my initial reaction, quite frankly, is get over it. You see, I'm on your side. This time. This has been very valuable. Very enlightening, Justice. Thank you. Mrs. Ward, I'll see you soon.
What I would call a candid exchange of views. Well, I finished all the envelopes. The rest is up to you.
You mean you're not going to rule the paper for me, too?
You're on your own, bub.
Boy, you know, one heck of a lot of very generous people put us over the top. Do you have any idea what it feels like to finally be able to pay all your bills?
That I wouldn't know.
You know, Granny Mae, one of the first things that I'm going to do as councilman is to funnel as much money as I legally can into child care.
That's fine. I can't see how anybody could believe that a child could grow up decent and responsible without care and attention.
Yeah, well, of course, all the money in the world can't assure that either.
But,
I'm thinking of A.J. Quartermain.
oh, Justice, but he's hardly more than a boy.
He doesn't know that. And that drives me up the wall.